Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
All right, good deal. So we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope everybody got plenty of beer and pizza. Please eat more. I don't want to take 3 whole pizzas home. That would be bad news for me. Anybody who hasn't signed up for the Meetup, please do. It's meetup.com, OpenStackers, and just helps me plan with pizza, soda, and stuff like that. Make sure there's enough for everybody. I'm Ben Rodrigue, and then the brains of the operation, Carlos Camarillo, co-organizer. And anybody who doesn't have Wi-Fi at this point, there it is, and it's over there on the white sign. Sponsor in terms of location is Geekdom. This week I don't have a sponsor for beer and pizza, so that's actually good. That means we have more time to talk with Matt. Next month is actually a friend of mine, Brent Clemens with Canonical, and he's going to have a conversation with us about architecting the telco cloud. He's a director of solution architects over there. And then, of course, our speaker, the illustrious Matt Dorn, going to have a conversation about passing the Certified OpenStack Administrator test. Anybody that hasn't seen or wasn't able to make it last month or hasn't seen the video, there's actually a video out on YouTube. I believe Carlos emailed the Meetup group, so everybody can have a link. It's a high level of OpenStack, and then this is actually the deep dive, hands-on of OpenStack from an administrator's point of view within a virtual environment, and then everybody will be able to SSH in. So laptop, Wi-Fi should be all that you need for that. And then I'm all out of slides, so hopefully that was enough time. I could sing the song.
Yeah, that's good.
Send everybody out of the room.
We have plenty of stuff to talk about, so
Okay,
it should be
cool. All right, well, without further ado, Mr. Matt Dorn.
Hello, check. Hear me? Okay. Cool. Actually, I'm going to use this. Hold on this for a second, and then we'll. Okay. So, welcome to the preparation for the Certified OpenStack Administrator exam. My name is Matt Dorn. I work with Rackspace. We wanted to get together and just kind of cover with you guys, talk to you guys about this new exam that's out from the OpenStack Foundation that allows you to get certified, get officially certified as a OpenStack administrator. So, as you know, if you deal with OpenStack, there's lots of different roles, right? You could be a OpenStack administrator, which means that you work for an organization that has OpenStack, and you're responsible for creating users, you're responsible for managing all those resources, typically you're monitoring resource usage, things of that sort. You're going to be an administrator, or you could be an engineer, responsible for the infrastructure. You're actually going and digging down into the configuration files. You're scaling out the actual infrastructure. There's also people that are, all sorts of roles with OpenStack. This test that came out is specifically for operating or administrating OpenStack. What that means is that you do not have to be responsible for editing configuration files. You don't have to be responsible for saying, for example, apt-get install Nova Compute or apt-get install Nova API. These are packages that you would need installed if you were installing OpenStack. This is strictly a OpenStack environment that is up and running. And if you were really think about this environment, what the environment is supposed to be is an environment within an organization, within a single organization, It's a private cloud, so not a public cloud. And what I mean by that is that if you were to look at the various projects or accounts, and we'll talk more about that coming up here, that are within the actual cloud that you're using, it's stuff like marketing, accounting, the finance department. So little business units inside one organization, and you're the administrator for that organization, okay? So let's we're gonna open up. I want to get just a show of hands to kind of figure out where you guys are at, to kind of figure out what your backgrounds are. I mean, you don't have to be experienced with OpenStack to follow along. It definitely helps. How many of you currently use VMware, vSphere, anything like that? If I help people? Okay, cool. Amazon Web Services? A few people? Okay, cool. So you know Amazon, OpenStack comes pretty naturally. How many of you use OpenStack? All right, so quite a few people are already familiar with OpenStack. And again, if you're not, it's okay. How many people currently feel comfortable on the command line? Okay, a lot of you, that's good. This is the one that everyone's embarrassed because they think it's a bad thing to prefer a GUI, but who prefers the GUI? Ben in the back, yeah? It's okay. It's okay, so don't feel bad if you prefer a GUI, it's all right. Okay. Okay, so a little bit about me. My name is Matt Dorn. I'm an OpenStack contributor and technical trainer. You can check me out on LinkedIn, Matthew Dorn. My GitHub is MA Dorn. My IRC is MA Dorn, Freenode. On Freenode, on the Freenode server. And then matt.dorn@rackspace.com is my email. You can email me if you have any questions. So, what is the Certified OpenStack Administrator exam? A little bit about it. Well, first of all, let me ask you a question. I'm kind of curious. Why would you get this? Why would you be interested in taking this exam?
Get a job.
Is it mostly for the job? What else? I mean, what else? What other reason?
No more.
Yeah, you'll definitely learn. You have to look stuff up. The exam itself allows you to perform tasks or solve problems using the Horizon dashboard and command line. Remember, there are 3 ways we can interact with OpenStack, right? There are 3 ways, if you remember this from my first presentation I did last month. Do you guys remember the first way? Command line, okay, via the Nova client, or the Neutron client, or the Glance client, or the OpenStack client, right? What's another way?
API?
The API, if I don't want to use the raw API, I can use curl or something like that, or a Python library, right, to interact with that API. And then, what was the other one? Horizon dashboard. So those are the 3 primary ways that I can actually interact with OpenStack. This exam allows me to interact with OpenStack. If I wanted to, I could use the API, but for the most part, I'm concerned with the Horizon dashboard, which is presented to me, and the command line tools, which have all been installed for me. And I can use those 2 things to perform various tasks. And we're going to go through what those tasks are coming up. It's about 45 questions. Has anyone here ever taken the Red Hat exams before? Okay, so for those of you who have taken the Red Hat exams, this is somewhat similar to that. Okay, in that you have a task and an objective you have to complete, and you have a free environment where you can do it however you want. If you want to do it via the GUI, you can do it via the GUI. If you want to do it via the command line, you can do it via the command line. But obviously we know in these type of exams where you have an option, not everything they ask you to do can be done on the Horizon dashboard or the GUI, right? That's kind of the catch. The environment, and I mean testing environment, is actually deployed with OpenStack Ansible. And if you're unfamiliar with OpenStack Ansible is a community effort. It started at Rackspace, a way of deploying OpenStack. Remember, there are tons of different ways to install OpenStack. We could install OpenStack from source. We can grab the source code from all the various projects and put it together. We could install it via apt-get install some Ubuntu package. If you want to install it on CentOS or Red Hat, we would use Yum. Another way we can actually go and install stuff is perhaps with this OpenStack Ansible. We go ahead and clone this down, and you use this Ansible to go out and totally deploy OpenStack for me. and it's really awesome. That's what they use for actually deploying the environment. They use OpenStack Ansible, literally. They just use an all-in-one script that you can get on that. It's at github.com/OpenStack/OpenStack Ansible. They deploy it for your testing environment, and that's what you can use to practice from. And it's specifically, it's Liberty. It's the Liberty version. So it's no different. They haven't modified anything. The only thing that they've done is added resources inside that cloud, so it looks like it's a used cloud, right? That means there's going to be some VMs in there, there's going to be some users in there, there's going to be some projects in there, things of that sort. You take the exam, this is the weird part, you actually take the exam on your personal laptop from anywhere. I think it says except a coffee shop. So I don't know if it would be acceptable to be in a busy coffee shop with people shouting and stuff like that and taking the exam. But the reality is, if you have a webcam on your laptop and a mic, you can take it from anywhere. And you literally just sign into the portal, you click a button, you have to have Chrome in order for it to work, and you have to have a special plugin in Chrome. And they see your desktop, not just your desktop, not just your Apple, not just your web browser, it's your entire desktop. They have the mic on and they have your camera on. And they watch you take it. And if they can't see your face or something, a chat window will pop up and they'll say, hey, you gotta put your face in the camera. They'll ask you to scan the room, you know? So it is cool that you can take it from anywhere. Again, yeah, it requires Chrome, and you can use Chromium too if you're into that, if you have a Linux box or whatever. Reliable internet access, welcome, and mic. I don't know why I have welcome there. I think it was yeah, I think it was the webcam. I think it was see, autocorrected. Okay. This is what the testing environment looks like, exactly. We're going to talk about the dashboard and what it is and what you're looking at here. If you've never seen a Horizon dashboard, we're going to talk about what it is. But it looks like this. On the left side, you have the Horizon dashboard, and on the right side, you have the actual server that you're SSHing to with the clients installed. Okay? You can do each objective that you cycle through, and there's this thing that comes up, will allow you to choose. However, you can do it either way. You can do it from here, or you can do it from here. It's the same environment. If you get a certification, you get this certification here. On the left, you can see I put mine up here. And then the other cool thing is you get this logo next to your name in the OpenStack.org member database. So everybody knows that you are certified. All right? Okay. So what this all-in-one node that you're logged into, we're not going to drill into the services like really hardcore because this is about an operator, right? This is about being an administrator. It's not about being an architect or engineer. But check this out. Look at the key on the top left that I have here. For all the stuff that's orange, it's going to be a service. And for all the stuff that's blue, it's going to be a daemon. Okay? If you're unfamiliar with the term daemon, think about a running program. Okay, a program that's typically running in the background. All right? If you're familiar with Linux, you would see a daemon by using what? Maybe PS, right? The PS program. You would do PS AUX or something, and you would grep for that process, and you would see it running there. So typically we have Keystone. Keystone's the name of the service. We're not talking about the actual daemon name. We're saying it generically. Keystone, right? Keystone now commonly runs under Apache. That means the Keystone code gets installed, and that API, that Keystone API, is actually running with the help of Apache, right? The web server. Now, Keystone, do you guys know what Keystone is?
Yeah.
Authentication. So Keystone is the very first thing that you interact with. When you put your username and password into the dashboard, the first thing it interacts with is Keystone. And Keystone basically handles authentication. It doesn't handle authorization, which we'll see later. Glance. The Glance service. You guys know about Glance? Images, exactly. When we think about Glance images, these are images that have been baked by someone. right? Glance are images that have been baked by somebody. If I say baked, I mean, we're not looking at an install screen, right? We're not talking about booting an ISO. We're talking about someone, you or someone else, or Ubuntu or CentOS, or somebody who actually went in and created this image that was intended to be deployed in a cloud-like scenario. And I say that because as soon as you specify that image and you boot that image, what's going to happen is you're not going to get an install screen, right? You're going to get a login prompt. And so Glance is the image repository. It's where you put the images. Glance API and Glance Registry are the two daemons that are running on the server that help that occur. And you choose where you want to put the images, right? Cinder, what's Cinder?
Storage. Block storage.
Block storage, yeah. Cinder is just like a portable USB drive that when you spin up your instance or your VM, you take that portable USB drive and you plug it in to your VM. And then what do you have? Well, if you're running a Windows OpenStack instance, you have a D drive now, right? If you're running Linux, what are you going to probably see? If you do an fdisk-L or something. Yeah, you'll see a new device, maybe a dev BDB or SDB or something, right? There's a Cinder API, there's a Cinder volume, and a Cinder scheduler. These are the various daemons that run on there. We also have, this is the most famous one, Nova. Nova is compute. Nova is not a hypervisor. Nova is just there to use whatever hypervisor you have installed. You can use Hyper-V, Microsoft Hyper-V hypervisor with Nova, right? You could use vSphere, vCenter, ESXi, KVM, whatever. You can use whatever you want with Nova Compute. So you have Nova API, Nova Scheduler, Nova Conductor, Nova Console Auth, and Nova Compute. And there's some other ones here, Nova VNC Proxy. You've probably seen the word VNC or seen the name VNC. That's for giving you console access to your machine. Neutron. This is the scariest one. Everyone's afraid of Neutron because it's networking, but it's really not that big of a deal once you actually get comfortable with it. What Neutron is basically the networking. When you want to spin up an instance, what do you need? You need an image. You also need what we call a flavor. A flavor is the memory, the CPU. It's a little template that tells us how big we should make the VM. And you also need to put it on a network. Why do you think you have to put it on a network? How are you going to access the thing from far away when that VM is sitting in there? You have to associate it with an external IP address, right? In order to associate it with an external IP address, you need Neutron, okay? We've got a Neutron server, we have an agent here, DHCP L3 agent metadata. Of course we have Horizon. Horizon runs under Apache as well. And Swift. If you're unfamiliar with Swift, Swift is object storage. Okay, this is comparable in the Amazon world to S3. And it's essentially on a most high basic level, a lot like Dropbox. Okay, it's about storing something and writing it and archiving it and not accessing it that often. Doesn't mean you can't access it, doesn't mean it's not available. It just means that a lot of people make the joke, write once, read never. You're going to put it away, you're going to archive it. It's not for high performance. Okay, it's to store billions of objects, okay, billions of things, static blob storage. And it has a ton of services.
Wow.
Okay, so a lot of stuff there. And then we have Heat. And by the way, I'm mentioning all these because these are all of the services that are actually you're going to be tested on. Not these specific services with their names, but the actual using them. Heat API, Heat Engine, and Heat API CFN, which is a reference to OpenStack. The services that talk to each other have to follow the same rules. You may be thinking, what are the rules? Well, what do you need to usually authenticate? A username, you need a password, right? And then sometimes you need project name. We'll talk about what that is, and some additional information. But the point is, the services, when they communicate with each other, they all use the API. That's a good thing, because then when you come up with the next awesome service to add to OpenStack, it's going to be pretty easy to make it fit into this world, right? Just have them talk, use the same middleware, follow the authentication rules, right? Okay, so we talked about this. 3 ways to interact: Horizon dashboard, command line interface, and our API. Now, Keystone, authentication, not authorization. We're going to talk about quotas, OpenStack client, creating domains, project groups and roles and users, creating services and endpoints. And let me see if this script's done yet. One sec. Oh, cool. Okay, so a few are done. Oh, here they come. I have pieces of paper to hand out. I'm going to hand them out. Okay? Let's do that. Do you have any questions while I get that at all? While we get to the live environments? Yes?
So the purpose of piece of paper, so we don't log in someone else's environment and screw it up, or what?
Sorry. No, it's okay, no. You're going to log into an environment that I've created for you that is just like the testing environment, very similar. The things that are created in that environment, it's like logging into a real world environment. Imagine you went to an organization and you logged in, right? That's what you're going to be. It's not going to be broken and you have to fix it. There's just going to be tasks. Does that make sense?
He's asking why the piece of paper.
Instead of just telling us what we log into. Yeah, I thought it was to avoid conflict. Like, I don't log into Joe Bob's environment, he doesn't log into mine or something.
Oh, I'm sorry about you. Why piece of paper? There's different IP addresses, easy, more convenient.
Okay.
That's all. Right, that's all.
Analog.
Yeah, analog. I think it's nice to have a piece of paper with the IP address. I don't know. I like it.
Something to take home, a memento.
Okay, let's see what we got here.
Just in time.
All right. Any other questions? At all? Anything you're thinking about while I pass these out? Let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. Y'all need to look.
We just need one.
Okay. Cool. I don't know. Is it finishing in order? Actually, give him a shot. So what you're waiting, if you guys have never SSH before, if you're not familiar with that, if you have a Windows box, you need to make sure you have PuTTY installed. Just go to Google and type in PuTTY and download that, and I can help you get connected. Sure. You guys good? And by the way, you guys are all in your own environment. You guys are all in your own environment. All right, so this is your own private server. Now, not all of them have changed yet, so. Listen, the first thing you can do is actually open up your web browser and go to the IP address that's on the sheet. Yes, should be HTTPS. But I don't think there may not be certificates on there, so.
Yeah, no, you get the scary security.
Yeah. So it's just a dev environment, right? So don't be alarmed. So HTTPS and the IP address. Can everybody? I need a little help. So if you could tell me if it's not even coming up for you, that would be helpful, and I'll give you an environment that's been properly provisioned. They should all be fine, but can somebody raise their hand if they have it working on their laptop? If they have it, this right here is OpenStack login? Okay, cool. Awesome.
Is it the same credentials?
No, don't log in. Don't log in yet. Yeah, nobody, yeah, don't log in yet. It's not the same log, it's not the same login that's on here. Just log, I just want to make sure everyone can get to the, I want to make sure everyone can get to the OpenStack splash screen here. Can anyone not get to the, it's not coming up? Okay, what number are you?
11.
Okay, try this one. Try that one. You got it? Oh, cool. Okay. We're going to SSH in a second. Okay, we're going to SSH in a second. All right, everyone okay? Everyone good? Okay, good. We did it. Now, if you could open up another web page. And type in coa.cloudtrain.me. Okay? coa.cloudtrain.me.
Yay.
Everyone see it? Okay. coa.cloud, I know it's hard to see up there, it's very small, but coa.cloudtrain.me. Okay? Now, what you're looking at here is this is just an excerpt of a class that we actually offer where we train you on OpenStack certification, specifically this exam. So if you don't have PuTTY and you have a Windows box and you want to actually, we will have the SSH in, just click the link there to get PuTTY. There's slides up there that the slides we're going to go over today are on there to download, and then some exercises which we're going to walk through. There's 3 available right now. The other ones aren't available. This is just for the meetups, an excerpt. Do you see where it says sign up there? If you're interested in taking the exam, or you're interested in just getting a voucher for the exam, click that link and put in your information. Okay? We're going to send you information on the course. We're going to send you information on how to get a voucher, answer the questions, very simple form, very quick. Please sign up whenever you get a chance. And I'll keep this up for a few days. All right. So, are we ready to continue on? Yes.
The password and or username and password we're using are OpenStack, correct?
No, don't log in yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, it's good. No, the credentials that you see on here are for SSHing in.
Okay.
We'll do it in 1 second.
My bad.
No problem. As long as you can see the screen, it should be good. Yeah. Okay. So, this is what the Keystone screen looks like. You guys should all see this right now on your, not on the slides, but on the actual OpenStack environment, right? You all see this. I want you to do this. I want you to type in demo demo. Username demo, password demo, very secure. Okay, type that in, and you should be able to log in. Once you're inside, and by the way, what do you think in the background, if you were to actually peel back the GUI there, when you typed in those two things, what do you think it talked to?
Keystone.
Keystone. It talked to Keystone, and Keystone said, yes, this user is demo, and that is their password, it is demo. And look, and I want you to check this out. This is if you can understand this concept, I can guarantee that you'll be very successful on the exam. If you can understand this concept, I can guarantee you'll be very, very successful on the exam. Now, check that out on the top right there. Notice how there are 4 different departments. Remember, this is a private cloud. This is an organization. There are 4 different departments here: accounting, human resources, information technology, and marketing. Depending on which one I select is the one that I'm scoped to. We call that scope. So in other words, in the background, Horizon is holding on to a scoped token that is scoped to that particular project. In OpenStack, we refer to those things up there as projects, but we also refer to them as accounts, and sometimes even people call them tenants. They all mean the same thing. Projects, accounts, and tenants all mean the same thing. So if I were to go in there and scope myself to human resources, I'd be holding on to a scope token to human resources, and then, this is the important part, anything I do in OpenStack, upload images, create networks, create instances, they're all going to be owned by, who do you think they're going to be owned by? Yeah, exactly. That specific project that I'm scoped to, that's who owns the thing that I create. When we're looking at this here, in the background, these are the projects all talking to each other and being displayed and available for us to use. When the instances menu there is for Nova. The volumes, that's for Cinder, to create Cinder volumes. The images, that's for uploading images, right? Or downloading images. We might have a brand new image that somebody baked for us, right? On a new Ubuntu image. We would upload it just by clicking that link there. And next we have Neutron. We have Neutron, which is networking, right? If I want to create a network, I'm going to put an instance on that network. Look what else I have here, an orchestration section where I can upload a template that tells OpenStack to create or deploy an application. In other words, go ahead and spin up 2 VMs, attach volumes, networks, and so forth. And then look at this, object store for Swift. That's where you actually upload objects or download objects. Now, we can do all this stuff via the CLI and API, but this is a very easy way to actually access these projects, right? And by the way, identity panel, that's Keystone. So, here's the big kicker for you. We're not going to confuse you. The test is on the Liberty release of OpenStack. We're currently on the Mitaka release, and everybody's working on the Newton release, otherwise known as the master branch, right? The Liberty release that gets provisioned for you is running something called the Keystone V3 API. The Keystone V3 API introduced some new concepts that were different or new to Keystone, coming from the V2 API. So in the V2 API, if you were running a public cloud, when I say public cloud running versus a private cloud, I want you to think like when I'm running a public cloud, that's me running something like Amazon in my basement, right? Or something like Rackspace's public cloud in the basement. Something where like literally McDonald's and Burger King could be sitting on the same VM or sitting on the same server, I should say, in 2 separate VMs and not even realize it. A public cloud, shared resources. If I were running a public cloud and I were using the V2 API, this right here, each one of these would be a different company, right? I would say, okay, this might be Walmart, this may be Target. Each project would be its own company. But with the introduction of the V3 API, we actually can put each company into a domain. We call it a domain. So it's just a level higher than projects. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that the test automatically, anytime somebody provisions a V3 Keystone environment, you have this default domain. So it acts a lot like V2 in that you have this default domain. When you create these projects or accounts, they all get put under the default domain. You do not need to worry about, scoping yourself to other domains and applying roles to other domains or anything like that in the exam. The exam strictly works off of the default domain here. So anytime you create a new project, it gets put into the default domain. And again, we're running a private cloud. So the private cloud is running with this default domain, and we have these projects inside. Now, who are you right now? You're logged in as user demo, right? User demo has what's called a role. A role is just a label that Keystone stores in its database. That's all it is. It's just a label. That's why we say that Keystone handles authentication, not authorization. What I mean by that is that Keystone does not have the definition of a member. Member is the role, but it doesn't say what a member can do or not do. That's not stored inside Keystone. That's authorization, right? Who can do what? The actual authorization for what a member can do or not do is actually stored inside the policy.json file, which is inside every single OpenStack service. In other words, if I were to go on GitHub and I were wondering, what can somebody with an underscore member underscore role do in Neutron? Can they create networks? Can they create public networks and all these things? What can they do? If they have underscore member underscore, what can they do? How would I know where that definition is? That definition is stored in Neutron. So I can literally go into GitHub /Neutron, click on the Etsy directory, and see its policy file. And by the way, this can be totally edited and modified. This can be completely modified. So in other words, when I create a new label or a role, let's say I were to create a role called intern, it's going to be absolutely necessary that I go and update this definition file, not just for Neutron, but for every single service in the environment, and say what an intern can do or not do. So a role is just a label, okay? And we don't have obviously enough time to go through all this stuff, but it's very important that we understand that authorization is kept in each individual service. So I want everybody to scope themselves by clicking on the top link there to accounting. Just do it for the heck of it. Just go ahead and scope yourself to the accounting. Notice how demo user is inside human resources, information technology, and marketing, but I'm going to scope myself to accounting. Now watch this. Just like I mentioned, everything that I do inside of accounting is owned by accounting. I create images, networks, routers, instances, volumes. They're all owned by accounting. But guess what? There is something called quotas, and you need to know this for the exam, because the exam focuses heavily on quotas. Quotas are the rules that say how many of those things you can spin up. So by default, you're kind of limited to what you can actually spin up. Networks, routers, you can do 10 networks, you can do some routers, you can do 10 instances or 20 instances. So there's actually a place that you can go to adjust the quota, and guess what? Somebody with the underscore member underscore role cannot actually change the quota. It's going to require an admin user, and you will have access to an admin user in the exam. And we're about to SSH in via the command line, so I can actually show you what it's like to be inside the exam. If you log into the admin, if you log into the dashboard as an admin, you have the ability to change the accounting project's quota. This is what it looks like, just like this. I can say the amount of instances, I can increase that to 20. I can inject files, I can increase that. I can increase the number of volumes or networks, right? This is an admin function, the ability to adjust these quotas. All right, so why don't we go ahead and play around a little bit with Keystone on the command line. So if you could go ahead and SSH into your server, and if you need help, just raise your hand. I'm sure someone here will help you out. I'm going to open up a new window here. The username is OpenStack. And the password is OpenStack. Okay? So, is everybody logged in? SSH in?
Do we use the IP address provided?
Yes. Same IP address to get in. Yep. Let me know if you have some problems getting in. Everyone okay? SSH in? All right, here we go. So what we want to do here is we actually want to go and open up our exercises. So open up your exercises on the coa.cloudtrain.me and click on number 1. And what you want to do is become the root user. And you're going to become the root user by just doing sudo su dash. Just like that. And after you become the root user, and this is just like the exam, similar to the exam, okay? What you will have access to is an OpenRC file. Are you guys familiar with the concept of the OpenRC file? The OpenRC file is a credential file. Remember I told you there are 3 ways to interact with OpenStack, right? There's a Horizon dashboard, there's the CLI and API. If you want to interact with OpenStack via a CLI, look what happens when I try to do that. Look what happens when I try to do that. Watch. So I'm going to say something like OpenStack.
Serverless.
Yep, that's a good one. Notice what it's saying to me right there. It's saying to me, I have no idea how to talk to what OpenStack you want me to talk to. You may be thinking, well, why doesn't it know you're SSH into the server? Because guess what? To use a client, you don't need to be SSH into a server. You can install a client on your MacBook, you can install a client on your Windows box, it doesn't matter. This is a very important concept because everybody assumes that because you're using a command line tool, that you have to be SSH'd into an actual environment. The real power of an OpenStack API is the fact that you can be at the Alamo on their Wi-Fi or something, right? And try to access an OpenStack cluster in Tokyo and have success. Like be able to actually spin up an instance from the Apple Store. You don't have to be inside the OpenStack environment. You don't have to be SSH'd into it. You just use a client and the client's going to talk via the API. So what this is asking for is, you can see it says OS username, right? OS password. So you have 2 options here. You have 2 basic options. The 2 basic options are number 1, every time I want to communicate with OpenStack, I'm going to have to write, okay, OpenStack server list, -- OS username, demo, Right, every single time. And not only that, I gotta give it my auth URL, right? I gotta tell it where I wanna communicate with. Every single time. Or there's an alternative. There's a quicker way to do it. And the quicker way to do it is to either create or find what we call an OpenRC file, a credential file. And what that credential file does, let me show it to you. Do this, do cat OpenRC. There's one sitting in there, and there's one sitting in there on the exam. Do you see what that is there? You see those export and these, it has a word equals. What do we call those? Anyone know?
Environment variable?
Yeah, they're environment variables, exactly. What this is a very easy way for us to store our credentials temporarily. I say temporarily because it's obviously not secure. In this case, I mean, we're going to log out and they'll be gone. They're just in memory. They're not persistent, right? We're going to go ahead and source these. We're going to literally type in source OpenRC, and now we are ready to use the client. Because when the client asks what's the username and what's the password, it's going to notice that you're not passing it anything, and it's going to look at the variables in the session. So watch what happens if I type in export. Do you see what it did? It automatically took the username admin, the project name admin, the tenant name admin, the default domain, and it set in other words, it set the answers to the questions that the CLI is asking. So now if I actually say OpenStack server list, you can see that it worked. How do I know it worked? It returned nothing because I have no VMs. It didn't give me an error, right? I could also do OpenStack token issue to see my token. And there's my token right there. So clearly I'm able to authenticate thanks to the variables that have been sourced. Does that make sense to everyone? Pretty straightforward? It's very important that we understand that in the exam, you're going to have one OpenRC file, and it's for an administrator. Now, what you need to do is come up with you have to figure out the ability to actually create another credential file if you want to do something on the CLI. You know how like you went up to the top of a Horizon dashboard and you clicked on the accounting to scope yourself to accounting? How do you think you would scope yourself to accounting on the command line? Any ideas? How would you scope yourself to accounting on the command line?
Project name?
Change the project name. In fact, the most convenient way to do it is you could copy that RC file, and you don't have to do this, you can just follow along. Notice I copied the OpenRC file to one called OpenRC Accounting. I'm going to edit that file, and I'm going to use Vim, but you may be really adamant about using Emacs.
You're already rude.
That's right. Okay, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to change, I'm actually going to change my username here to demo, because only the demo user in my case has access to the, I believe it has access to the accounting project. And notice how I have to set this 2 times. The reason why I have to set it 2 times is because the old clients used to rely on tenant name, the new ones just need project name.
Will tenant become deprecated and removed?
I think, I assume, I know that for a long time, I have a slide to actually show you that. Give me 1 second here. So now after changing that, source OpenRC accounting. Now I've sourced the accounting. Now look what happens if I say OpenStack token issue.
Oh, you didn't change the password.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay? So that right there is a token that is scoped to the accounting project. So it's really important that we know when it asks, the reason why I'm saying this is because it might ask you to do a task, right? it might say from the marketing project, create a VM, right? So clearly, we'd have to figure out how to scope ourselves to marketing here. How do we become a marketing user? You can even see here in the result that comes back from the token that it says project ID. Project ID. What do you think that ID is a reference to?
The project name?
Yeah, the project name. And to see all projects in my environment, I have to become an admin. So I'd go to source OpenRC, OpenStack, project list, and those are all my projects in my environment. And you can notice that this project 0080 is 080 here, accounting. Make sense? Real quick, just in regards to the clients, I just want to show you a few slides on that. So the project-based clients, these were the ones that when people used OpenStack clouds, this is what we use all the time. These were things like Python Keystone client, Python Lambs client, Neutron client, Nova client, Cinder client. In other words, when you see one of these clients here, if you wanted to do like Cinder list and interact with Cinder, or Cinder create a volume, you'd have to have the Cinder client installed, right? Well, what they decided to do is that this is really annoying. Why do I have to download a client for every single thing that I want to do? Why do I have to download a client for Cinder? Why do I have to download a client for Swift and so forth? Well, you can still get these clients if you want them, but they actually automatically get installed if you download this OpenStack client called OSC, which is a single command line interface for OpenStack services with a uniform command set and format. In other words, it's one command or one command set to rule them all. It's basically called Python OpenStack client. You download it, and it's the command that you see here that I was using, OpenStack. Notice that it tries to embody being able to be compatible with every single OpenStack, well, the mainstream OpenStack projects. So in the past, we used Nova list to list instances, and we can now use OpenStack servers list. It's actually relying on some of the API, I think some of the bindings actually from these old clients, so that they all get installed automatically. So all you have to install now for at least the mainstream projects is you can do pip install for the Python package manager, or you can do apt-get install, and it's Python-OpenStack client. You still have to download the Heat client, you still have to download the Swift client manually. Okay. So back to what we're doing here, we're going to go ahead and make sure that you're sourced as an OpenRC. Source OpenRC, that's your admin. So go back and make sure you source as OpenRC. And we're going to go ahead and run the OpenStack catalog list. And what you're looking at right now is a service catalog. This is a very critical part of OpenStack. Anytime you want to offer a new service to anybody in your cloud, you have to put that service in the catalog. In other words, when you authenticate against an OpenStack cloud, it gives you back a scope token, and it gives you back a catalog. If you want to go and spin up an instance, which one of these projects are you probably going to use? What do you think? Spinning up an instance, which one are you probably going to communicate with?
Orchestration.
You could, if you could use Heat orchestration if you wanted to spin up an instance. Yeah, for Nova as well.
Yeah.
You could also use Nova. So if you look, you can see that there is a Nova right here in my catalog. And notice how I have 3 endpoints. I have admin, internal, and public. Right? So what I can actually do with that is send my scope token to the endpoint. Send the scope token to the endpoint. And along with the request. Where do you think I look up the instructions for how to boot up an instance? How would I understand how to boot an instance with that URL?
OpenStack.org.
The API documentation. Yeah, I think docs.openstack.org. So if I actually go and I find look for the API documentation, it will tell me how to interact with that Nova API. It will give me the specific instructions on how to interact with that. Well, guess what? That's a lot of hassle. I don't want to mess with the API. That's why we use the client. The client eases the use of the API. In the background, all the client is really doing is making API calls. That's all the client is actually doing. Go ahead and do an OpenStack domain list. And you can see that you have two domains. You have one called default and one called heat. The reason why we have a heat domain is because for the heat installation, heat requires its own domain, but that shouldn't concern you with anything on the exam. We can see our projects that we currently have in the domain. Notice that we have one called Accounting, Information Technology, Human Resources. We can see all of our users in the environment. Got a lot of people in here, right? A few people. These are all just fake people that we've put into various projects in the cloud. Now, this is an example of one of the objectives the exam might give you. It would say, edit user details for Jenny, update the email to jenny@example.com, disable the account. Now, one of the things that you should probably notice is that some of these things you cannot do on the Horizon dashboard. That's why we're going to show you how to do it via the command line. And it might be a little faster that way too. Check out this command. Basically say OpenStack user set. Notice how I have the user list here. I know that Jenny's username is Jenny S. And I'm simply going to change the email by using the email flag. And by the way, I can always say OpenStack user set help. Tells me the flags that it accepts. I can always do help, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just say update the email that and then disable it. And then I'm going to give it the user ID. And the user ID is Jenny S. It's simple as that, it's been done. I can actually prove that it's been done by just doing an OpenStack user show on the username. Okay, so you see it's been disabled. Everything in OpenStack not only has a name, it has an ID. Everything has a UUID. Okay, that's the whole idea. So we know that we can have multiple images that have the same name. The reason why those have multiple images have the same name is because they really have a unique identifier associated with them. All right, now you can actually look at the quotas if you do an OpenStack quota show. And again, we're in admin right now. We're going to look for quotas for the admin project ID. For the accounting project ID. And you can go down here and put in the accounting. The way I got that, again, is an OpenStack project list. That gives me the ID associated with all of my people here. So I say OpenStack quota show. Show me the quotas for accounting. And you can see this tells me all the quotas, and I can adjust them, all the quotas for the accounting project. Okay, just like this. Okay, how many things I can actually spin up in accounting. And we're going to go ahead and we can adjust that to 20. So I simply say OpenStack quota set. I'm going to say, let's see, how many instances can I spin up here? 10? I'm going to say push it up to allow 20, just like that, and I have to put the project ID in there, which is, you can find it right there. And I'm going to do an OpenStack quota show again, and my quota has been pushed up to 20 for my instances. So you can see it right there. So what project are we currently scoped to right now? What user are we currently using this as? Like, this is the part that's split.
Accounting?
Are we? We're admin.
We're just the default. Everything.
Admin user. Yeah, admin user. So if we actually type in export, you can see that I'm currently using the client as an admin. So it's really important that we don't lose track when you take the exam, that you don't lose track of who you are if you're using the command line. You cannot, if you're using the Horizon dashboard to do some tasks, make sure that you look at the top and your scope to that particular project. We're going to create a new domain. Okay, this isn't complex. We're just going to create a new domain called Starbucks in case it asks us. By the way, in their configuration and in this configuration, you cannot create domains via the Horizon dashboard. You have to use the CLI to create domains, but it's a very easy command. The command is OpenStack domain create Starbucks. If you're logged in as a user who doesn't have the admin role, guess what? You're not going to be able to create domains. You have to be an admin. We create a domain called Starbucks. We're going to create a group. We haven't talked about groups, but basically you can assign roles to groups and then dump a whole bunch of users into a group. The reason why we do that is because it's annoying to have to pick a user, apply him a role, pick another user, apply him a role. To avoid that whole process, you just apply a role to the group and dump the people into the group. And a few other things here. We create the group called interns. We're going to assign the member role to interns. We're going to create a user called CMORB. The task may say create a user named CMORB instead of the Starbucks domain. You can figure all this stuff out by just doing OpenStack user create or whatever you can do OpenStack help. All the help is there. You're allowed to use the help. You're allowed to use docs.openstack.org. Okay, I don't think they're going to let you look up a special website that you created with the answers, but you can use docs.openstack.org and you can use any of the help that's in here. So I'm going to go ahead and create the CMORB user. I'm going to add CMORB to the interns group. And as you can see here, I can list all my services. These are all the services in my environment that have been installed. In order to create an endpoint to access a service, you have to have a service installed. It just basically is simply a label, that's all it is. And you have an endpoint. This is what shows up in the catalog. All of our endpoints. And they may ask you to create a brand new service. Remember, your customers, if you're building a cloud like this, or your employees, they want more services, right? So it may ask you in the exam to create a brand new service. In this case, it's called Donuts. And the process for creating a new service is pretty easy. You simply say OpenStack service create, the name of it, maybe a description with dash description, and we're going to call it pastry as a service, which is just like the name of it, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to associate an endpoint. Remember, there's 3 endpoints. Do you have any idea why there's 3 endpoints? Why is there a public admin and internal endpoint? Why do we have 3 URLs versus just 1? Why would we design it this way?
Different ways to access the environment.
Right, so if
One would be communication like between APIs, I guess.
Right, exactly. So let's say an example would be like if I actually went to the data center where this OpenStack was being hosted, right? And I went through the man trap, security, went to my cage, opened up the KVM, and I'm inside the actual server, I'm probably not going to use the external URL, right? I'm not going to use an external IP address. There's no point in going all the way out and in. I can just use the internal IP. Same thing with the API communication. Perhaps they shouldn't be communicating via an external IP. It would be easier to communicate via the internal IP, depending on where I'm located. And then sometimes the admin URL exposes functionality that's not available to the internal or public URL. But in most cases, that's not applicable. So just go ahead and create your 3 endpoints here. Notice the port that it's listening on is 4545. It's a made-up port, doesn't mean anything. They're just going to tell you to create a service or create a URL that is pointing to 4545. And then we do our catalog list, and which we expect to see. Probably our new service endpoint, right?
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Quick question. What do you mean by create your own service? I mean, I think of Nova or Plans as a service.
Yeah.
Is it a new project in OpenStack that you author and you create an endpoint? Or what exactly do you mean by the word service here?
Okay, so when you look at this, catalog here, this is what your users in your organization see, right? What they can use. So it's not far-fetched to think that, I mean, we all know that in OpenStack community, people are creating new services or projects all the time.
Right.
So one could create a brand new service that perhaps does something really cool. A group of developers create that thing, and then they add it to the OpenStack world. And you could actually add that service to your catalog. It's almost like advertising it, right?
Got it. So this is really, new service was created in OpenStack, you're adding it to the catalog. That's what that means.
Yeah, but I'm saying your service because technically there really are no limitations for you to actually go
We
home
can create our
tonight
own,
and
yeah.
create your own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I've been rambling for an hour. I'm not sure how long we want to go on this, but just want to advertise that we have an entire course built around helping you pass this exam. Okay, so definitely sign up if you're interested, and I'll go for as long as we need to go tonight, as long as you want to stick around or whatever you want to do.
When you say we, Rackspace.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Rackspace, to get the information on it and to sign up on how to take the test, just click on sign up on the top here. And put your information in here, okay?
About how many days is that course?
It's 1 day.
1 day course?
Yeah, it's 1 day. Now, you know, we have a variety of courses, right? We have the essentials class and things of that sort. We have a class on neutron networking. We have a class on contributing to OpenStack. But this is a 1 day class. It doesn't require, but it is recommended that you take our fundamentals or our 4 day essentials class to get comfortable with all the deep, if you're new to OpenStack. But if you're just interested in taking the exam, we can also just give you a voucher if you want to give it a shot without even taking the prep course. So definitely reach out to us about that. So,
However you want to wrap up. I don't know if people have additional questions. Or
Yeah, you guys have
It has
any
been
more?
an hour.
yeah, you guys have any, yeah,
Just as more of a suggestion, can you demonstrate using the -- debug on OpenStack client
Yeah.
commands?
yeah.
I think it's helpful to see that it's not doing anything magic, it's just making API calls.
Right. So, like we were talking, anytime you use the client, it just uses API calls. What we can actually do is, for example, let's imagine when we're doing the server list. Let me ask you this first of all. That -- debug flag is going to allow me to see the actual API calls being made, but let me ask you a guess for people that are unfamiliar. Here's a guess. I want you to guess, where do you think this client is going to communicate with first in the world of OpenStack? Where do you think this client is going, what is it going to talk to first? And what's it going to get from Keystone? How about this? What's it going to provide to Keystone? What are you thinking? What if it didn't have a token?
Credentials?
Yeah. It would provide the credentials to Keystone first, get back a token, then provide, if I'm doing a server list, whose server list? Listing servers, probably which project? Nova. And then it's going to send that token to the Nova endpoint. It does all that. So we can hit that button there. And as you can see, we can see the request and response. Now check this out. What listens on 5,000? I don't know if we spoke about it, but Keystone is usually bound to 5,000. In this case, Apache. Apache is bound to 5,000, serving Keystone. So we can see here that it makes a request, and all it's using is curl, right? It's just a simple curl command. And you can see that it's talking to 5,000. That's the V3 API. You can see that it's sending, it's saying we're going to be sending JSON. It's telling it what it's going to send. That the agent we're using, we know typically when we do requests with a browser, it's going to say what browser we're using. And see here it says OpenStack client. And then what we want to be looking for here is a response back. And we did get a response back that verified that it's up and running. And one other thing to actually check out here is the fact that notice how it doesn't show me, not only does it not show me the credentials being sent for security reasons, notice how it doesn't show me the token. It looks like the token, but it's actually a hash of the token. And this is because you never know. You might be running the debug command, right? Somebody could be looking over your shoulder. I think in the past, it used to be exposed, right? So you can see, who do you think listens on 8774? If you talked to Keystone first and got the token, now it's sending the token to someone. Who do you think listens? Who do you think it's sending it to? Nova. Nova. It's sending a GET request to Nova, and look at this information here. Look at this endpoint. It's 8774. Oops. It's 8774 /v2.1, which is the version of the API, and then the project ID, and then server detail, which list all the servers. How did I know that that's what it was? You look at the API documentation, it tells you everything you tack on to the end to do a particular function. It might say, do this, do /servers show, or something like that. And then finally it comes back and says, how many servers do we have? Zilch, right? 0, none. But the client is really awesome. In fact, if you do have a server running, the client's going to format it, right? It's going to take that JSON response and put it into a nice clean table. So this is all the stuff the clients do for you. It's pretty cool.
What is the cost for the 4-day essentials class?
I can get you that information. Yeah. For sure.
Thanks very much for the information. It's really, really good.
No problem. I wish we could go a little further. I know it's getting kind of late.
How long are these test environments going to be available for playing around?
I'll keep them up for a bit. I'll keep them up for a couple days. Okay? So if you want to go home tonight and kind of play around a little bit or tomorrow, what I have is a virtual appliance that I can send you for importing it into VirtualBox. It's an OVA file. If you want this environment on your home system or your laptop. But the disadvantage is that it does require, because it is running in containers, it's OpenStack Ansible, about 7 or 8 gigabytes of RAM. Yeah?
With the zip file, when I unzip it, I get an error with it. We got later. There's a header's error that comes out when you unzip it.
Okay. Where did you grab it from?
The link you emailed me.
Okay. Yeah, I might have zipped it bad. I'll take a look at it. I'll get you a good one.
So you mentioned an environment. Could we post that to Dropbox or something like that to make that available to the folks here?
I have it, yeah, up on Cloud Files.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we could put a link along, like with the video or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, man.
No problem.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you guys stick around if you have any questions. I'm happy to help. If you have any technical questions, deep technical questions, stick around. I'll stick around for as long as it takes to answer all your questions, okay?
Cool.